I did not see you roll for your library skill.
In real life.
No excuses.
Also,
I dug up a fairly obscure one too, so it's just like, okay, they're not going to know anything about this one, and they didn't. And then they're like, okay, let's find out about this.
Well, to be fair, I knew a lot about the Cthulhu mythos and their gods and whatnot, so the name sounded familiar to me, but I didn't know all the nitty-gritty details.
I mean,
Well, I'm sure you do now.
Well, I mean, the game is called Call of Cthulhu, so I expected Cthulhu at the end, not anyone but Cthulhu. So I didn't think it was necessary to research, but okay, apparently. And I need to contextualize all of this because I started recording. Let me finish. I started recording as you were in the middle of that. So I need to contextualize what this is all about for future viewers. Apparently Danton is a naughty boy who should not have researched who the actual final boss is.
I don't care. It's basically when you pique my curiosity, I just basically go with it.
I mean, also, it's not against the rules for a player to research something off the table as long as he doesn't take that knowledge.
Use that knowledge anyway.
No. I'm about to say that, Ross. Unless he takes that knowledge into the game, when the character should not have that knowledge.
Yes,
that's what I was about to say.
But so now there is a dissonance between the player and the character, because even if the character doesn't know, the player does know, and the player might subconsciously, not intentionally, try to bleed that knowledge into his playthrough. Now that the player knows.
To be fair, we all knew there was going to be corpses on the other side of that door last session, but we all played with it anyway.
I mean, yes.
Besides, it's called Cthulhu mythos, yet there is even in that there's already more than just Cthulhu.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
But the point is, I had gone out of my way to dig up an obscure one for this one because I didn't want you guys to be like, oh, it's Nyarlathotep. Oh, it's Cthulhu. Oh, it's Atmos.
Nyarlathotep comes from outer space. It's one of the cosmic horrors, so it wouldn't really fit in a Call of Cthulhu campaign. But then
it is one of the great old ones of the Cthulhu mythos. Also, I just checked the stream and everyone sounded fine.
Fantastic.
Yeah. If you wanted to go with the most known ones, you could have gone with Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, or the Yellow King.
Don't forget Dagon. Don't forget Dagon. It's
I mean
it's one of the most famous ones, considering that Shadows over Innsmouth is Lovecraft's most adapted novel. We might be more knowledgeable of Call of Cthulhu as a name itself, but the story from Shadow over Innsmouth, despite not being as famous a title as Call of Cthulhu, it's actually his most famous novel and the one that's been most adapted. Even that one 90s point-and-click adventure game called Call of Cthulhu was actually Shadows over Innsmouth.
Also, I researched basically a bunch of Call of Cthulhu gods about a year ago for no particular reason whatsoever.
Yeah, there was a... I wonder what that reasoning was over a year ago. Especially since that was not even a blink in anyone's eye at the moment.
Yes. Anyway. So, I think we should begin the sessions.
Yes, I cannot wait to see how everyone dies horribly and joins me in the cemetery in the town of Darkest Dungeon.
Okay, so, last time I checked, you are in front of a burning building.
And a burning man.
You have your companion, Yvonne, has finished burning to death along with an innocent bystander. And
it was a woman, right?
Yes. And you have a number of onlookers, looking at the carnage.
Somebody is frying marshmallows over the burning corpses, I swear.
And police and fire department had just arrived.
They are rapidly en route.
Oh, so you changed that?
Yes.
Right. So. What? Okay. So after that, we should probably get going.
So, what are you doing? Are you going to flee the scene, or are you going to attempt to talk to the police or emergency responders?
Let's see. 3 people. One is a Native American.
Madhog, please.
What?
They need to make this decision themselves.
Okay, guys, what do you think?
Well, Jonathan would stay and wait because he's the one who called the police, and if just they were just to run, well, everyone has seen them. They are rather distinctive people. It would just make things worse.
Yeah.
And well, you two are covered in blood. Remember that?
Well, I said we put tablecloths over us.
Yeah.
You used one of the tablecloths to try to put out a fire, though.
That is true.
Right.
Remember, I just listened to the last session again, not long ago, just to, number one, verify details. Number two, entertain Diane with the comedy of errors that happened.
Aha. Yes, that was
Yeah,
really
yes,
comedic and full of errors indeed.
Yeah, totally something we needed in a horror campaign, my ad.
I can totally hear the ragtime piano music playing as all of that was happening.
No, I can too, but anyway, so...
It was a comedy of errors with the violence of Macbeth.
Harold Lloyd wishes he could make movies like this.
All caused by Icy Pal, let's remember that.
No.
Anyway, so
no.
back to the decision in game.
Okay. Okay, I guess we'll
dumping the blame on the dead man.
You set yourself on fire.
Well, it's
okay, guys.
Jonathan would.
So Jonathan wants to stay.
Yes.
Okay, Ursula, you seem to be leaning towards staying, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So then, what say you? Okay, so you will be staying to talk to the emergency response on the police and emergency response vehicles.
I mean, we have nothing to hide, as far as I know.
As far as we know, we have nothing to hide. Well, Ivan might have had something to hide, but dead men tell no tales.
Oh, really, Ivan, the only one with something to hide here. Sure.
Okay, so the
maybe I don't know.
The police do eventually arrive, and they see the scene. They take your statements, and after discussing, talking to the some of the other bystanders there, they ask you to come with them for questioning.
Okay.
Accepted.
Right then.
Alrighty. Yes. You also see that you have medical personnel doing what they can for the corpses of Ivan and that woman, but they're gone at this point. I mean, there's no life left in them. There's nothing that they can do. And you see the fire department trying to contain the well, let's just say that building was full of lots of flammable liquids, so it's burning nice and good. And the cat's meow is definitely no more.
And that's the cat's meow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's headline: Hell's Kitchen on fire.
And that's the cat's meow.
And Larry is going to be so happy about this.
Right. Okay.
If you don't have a second watering hole prepared, I'll eat my hat.
Yes, and you know how it's called, the second watering hole?
Mm-hmm.
The bee's knees.
Alrighty.
Okay, I'm gonna be right back real quick.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
I will wait for Devora to go any further.
All right.
There are reasons.
So, Ross.
Reasons. The best
so,
reason.
in the meantime, I am going to send this to you. I have a character for you to play, Madhog.
Oh,
I
yes,
need
thank
to know
you.
I do have dialogue written for you, though.
Oh.
So you can deliver it however you want,
Uh-huh.
and add whatever flair you want to it, but you still have to deliver the dialogue as it's written.
I get
Yeah,
the feeling
well,
he's going to be a dickhead copper.
I have been foreshadowing in my mind. I've been foretelling that for the entire week. And preparing for it, too.
The twist that's what we have all been guessing that that's your character, but the twist will be that he's
Lovely.
actually very understanding and open-minded.
No. You're so funny. I'm going to
I don't
Anyway,
like
I have a second part of this coming. Sorry, it just literally what is it? Discord didn't let me just copy pasta.
So, Ross, after the previous session, did you put your dice in the corner and not let them out until they understood what they had done?
Yes, I did.
Do they understand now? They were
I
bad
hope
dice.
so.
Well, that's best we can hope for.
Okay.
I didn't give them any food or snacks or anything.
Dan, should we tell him that dice don't actually eat?
I think he's pulling your leg.
But he's still there.
He's a fairy. Just go with it.
I don't believe in fairies.
Then how are you hearing him speak then?
Technology.
Can I decide this person's physical appearance at least?
Sure, you certainly can.
Okay then.
And there we go. That should be better. Okay, so I have expected reactions from the PCs in here. So there was some dialogue that you'll read if there's a little note above it
Okay.
specifically that when just let me know if something doesn't make sense to you in text.
Right. I am going to go along with this with no rehearsal whatsoever. That should be interesting. And this is the first time in which I have a script for a character.
Okay, I'm back now.
In a campaign that I have not made. So this is new. This is going to be a new experience for all involved. So let's make the most of it.
Did I miss anything?
No, because he didn't continue yet.
Okay.
All right.
So, I will continue from where we were. So you are brought into the station and brought before an older-looking gentleman whom, by his uniform, you guess is the police commissioner. You take your seats before him, and he begins questioning you in a matter-of-fact way. If you wish to describe this gentleman, Madhog, by all means.
First of all, does he have a name?
He does not yet.
Is Commissioner Bill Batts.
Bill Batts.
I
Okay.
just decided. Bill Batts, yes.
Sure.
Okay, sure. This older-looking gentleman is sporting a Teddy Roosevelt mustache, or at the very least, a really sad attempt at a Teddy Roosevelt mustache. You can tell he idolizes the man just by looking at it, but his face does not really fit. Teddy Roosevelt, was not as good as you think he was. He was manly, but he was still a piece of trash like all the presidents. Anyway, that's my heel foreign opinion, at least. As I was saying, yes, he's sporting Teddy Roosevelt mustache, and that's pretty much his most noticeable element. He's slightly pudgy. He looks like he was born with an angry face. As in, he looks mad, constantly mad, but the kind of anger that's existential more than specifically directed at something. You get the feeling he hates everything. So
is he also smoking a cigar?
He has a pipe.
As a pipe. Okay, got it.
Very gentlemanly.
Organ.
No, smoking pipe. You know?
Yes.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Sherlock.
I was afraid I had to explain what a pipe was. Okay. So let's start the questioning. This older gentleman sits before you. He looks you all free in the eyes. He does a silent motion with his mouth under his bushy mustache as if to scoff. And then he starts asking questions. So, where are you from?
Oh, you had the question before that, actually.
Oh, no, where are you from is the first question. Oh, right. Your names?
I think it cut you off. Try again.
Okay. So, you, Indian, your name?
Well, this is kind of character we are dealing with. Well, this was in the parameters. I am Jonathan Smith.
Your real name? No, he's asking. He's asking if that's your real name.
Wait, that's what it says in my ID.
Right. You, queer-looking guy. Your name?
Oh, my name, yes. My name is Gaston Tremblay. Yeah, that's it. That's my name.
Sure is. You, female. Your name?
Ursula Lockhart, sir.
Now, where are you people from? You, Indian, first. Go first.
I was born in the Navajo Indian reservation, but nowadays...
I don't give a crap about your Indian crap. I need to know the nation crap, where you're coming crap, I mean from. State! Give me a state, kid!
He... did he not come through? He did say that.
No,
You
said the Navajo nation. That's what you said. I didn't.
Did the end not come true? He said he was born in Navajo Indian reservation, but nowadays lives in Utah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I know what you were going for, but my character is impatient, so he was asking the state right off the bat. He didn't care about your life story because racist.
Okay. Utah.
Yeah. You sound French. Are you from France?
No, I'm from Canada, Alberta.
Wait. What? Canada isn't. Don't mess with me, kid. Canada is not in France. You're not Canadian. You're obviously from Grenoble or whatever it is France has. I'm watching you.
No, sir. Oh, no, sir. I assure you, I am from Canada, where we speak French as well.
That's bullbucky!
You can check a history book, you know.
He's going to call in an officer and actually check it for him because wise guy, huh? Okay, I'll be done with you soon enough. Now you, member of the female gender, you don't sound from around these parts, from judging from your accent. Where are you from?
I'm from England.
Which part of England?
West Yorkshire, Leeds.
Oh, West Yorkshire, I have a niece that lives there. I hate West Yorkshire! She left with that no good, stupid sailor man. Oh, I hate the English so much.
So this is supposed to be a horror game, right?
Listen, all the horror went completely smoked outside of a burning palace the last time. So
smoked.
I'm actually adding a bit of levity. So it's not unheard of to have levity in horror games, is it?
Yeah, we are most likely all going to die horribly soon.
Exactly. So, you're out of towners, huh? Why are ya people here in New York?
Being hired by your government to research this cloud, the storm cloud above your city.
Really now? You?
Why,
Show you
yes.
the letter.
An Indian, an English woman, and a French Canadian
Yes.
hired by our government to
I can
research
show you the letter.
the weather. That's quite the story. Got any proof?
I've got the letter if you want to see it.
Or why didn't you say so to begin with?
I've said it like 5 times!
I know, I'm following the script here.
We all have the letters to show. I'm sure Ivan had one as well.
Give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. Give me all the letters. I'm going to eat these letters. No, not actually eat the letters, but I'm going to read these letters in front of you and look menacing and threatening while doing so.
Are you going to eat them out loud or just in your head?
Metaphorically speaking. Maybe literally, I don't know. Depends on the mood.
Well, it would be important because I got a different letter from everyone else, slightly.
Okay, yes, I want all the letters. In fact, I'm going to say, I'll be keeping this until I can verify its authenticity. Are you hungry?
Not right now, no.
I
No,
lost my
not
appetite
really.
after what I saw in that basement.
What about you, kid? Angry?
Who is she talking to?
Indian guy. Are you
Am I
angry?
not coming? Am I not coming through? I
No,
answered
no,
that
no. It's not that you're not coming through. It's
I
that
think you
everyone
were
else
talked
is
over.
stalking over you. So I don't have a layer separation implant built in my ears.
No, not really.
Well, in that case, this Celtine cracker is all mine. Nom, 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 nom. He eats it in front of you. Almost.
During previous session I was joking about you after you went mad and thought you were a parrot. I was joking about the whole Polly wants a cracker thing.
Yeah, listen, I'm reading the script. I'm following the script. Apparently, I have a saltine cracker in my pockets because Ross said so.
Alright.
Okay, it's not something I'm planning. I am working with what's been given to me. Anyway, so it shows you a bit of a report that is proceeding to thumbing really hard as if to prove some sort of point that's clear to only himself. The 3 of you were reported to be in a known illegal bar at the same time the building caught fire. It says here 2 people burned to death as well. Seems pretty serious stuff, if I say so myself. Care to offer any explanation as to what you were doing there? I want the whole story! Start talking!
We were there investigating because apparently something happened at that bar to our government liaison, Mr. Michael Doble, that caused him to suffer from a mental breakdown the previous day.
A mental breakdown, you say?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, suppose.
oh, Michael Doppler, you mean the man that was brought to the hospital, to the local medical facility, and died right before any treatment was administered? The same Michael Doppler.
Yep.
Yes.
You
We
were
are the ones who brought him there.
I know that. It's all here in the report. Do you think I'm stupid?
No, we're just clarifying.
Yes, I'll clarify you with a sock in your mouth. Anyway, continue your story. I'm all ears.
After we arrived at the Cat's Paw, we saw no one
It's the
inside.
cat's...
And
it
Meow.
says here it's
That's
named
meow.
the cat's meow. Don't lie to me, Sonny. Come on to you.
that was player mistake, not
I
character.
know, but I'm making him part of it because why not?
Yeah, we found no one inside and found that rather strange, considering the time of the day. So we decided to take a quick look around to see if anyone was at the back. And when we opened the door to the basement, we smelled something really rancid coming down there. So we decided to investigate. And the scene that we found at the room at the bottom of the stairs was something straight out of a horror novel. There were at least what we could see, at least 20 dead bodies. Judging by the rigor mortis, they had been dead from 6 to 12 hours. There was also some strange. Damn it! I'm missing a word here. What was the book on actually?
An
A
altar.
pedestal.
Yeah, on
I was on a pedestal.
a pedestal. Yeah, there was also a pedestal with a book inside there, and well, many of us lost our lunches there due to the ghastly image, as if all the bodies looked like they were savage and the innards eaten by some sort of animal. What little I could determine before 3 hooded men appeared in the scene. After, I'm not sure what exactly these men had to do with the situation, but they seemed to not be bothered by the corpses and not surprised by them at all, but for whatever reason they allowed us to just leave, which led us to, well, leaving and barring the doorway down to the basement, and we immediately called the police. And just as I was the one who made the call, and just as I was finishing it, 4th man in robes appeared, and that was the moment when the 4th member of our investigation team, Ivan, pulled out the Molotov and threw it at them. It was an illegal bar filled with alcohol. He grabbed one of the bottles and turned it into a Molotov, throwing it at the 4th man.
A Molotov?
Yes.
An actual Molotov?
Yes. I saw a lot of those during the war.
Not when it's crude like that.
Hey, shut up. I'm sure whatever Molotov that was, it was high quality. Nobody asked you. Nobody asked you. Please continue.
And that Molotov that he threw at the 4th hooded man was what started the fire. And in the pandemonium that followed, the 4th man released the 3 others from the basement, and they ran away with the book, what I could see, as we were trying to also get out and put out the fire unsuccessfully. And as the 4 men got to the door first, and as they were running out, Ivan threw a second Molotov cocktail at them, which hit someone outside, but apparently none of the 4 that were on the crime scene. And then, well...
Ivan tried to put her out.
And instead caught fire himself. Our own attempts to stop the fire being, again, unsuccessful. Some of the idiots in that place thought it was wise to not put any water anywhere. And, well...
Wait.
That's the scene that the police and the fire department arrived.
Wait, you mean to tell me you poured alcohol on this man who was already on fire?
We panicked. We were trying to look for water.
Yes, and none of them were marked at all. Not even a bucket of water anywhere.
That sounds
Or
like
the
the
water
dumbest.
pitcher.
That sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
And
I
yeah, it's the
agree.
truth.
Whoever was the proprietor of that place was an idiot. Who puts alcohol in the water pitcher?
Okay, so let me get this straight. You were at this place called the Cat's Meow
Yes.
for reasons. You
Yes.
found there was a scene of a mass murder inside the basement that you happened to stumble upon, and you found a book, and then people in hoods came in and politely asked you to leave after finding the mountain of corpses.
More like very insistently, but yes.
And they asked us that we forget what we saw.
And then this guy, only known as Ivan, set the place on fire with Molotovs, and then accidentally a passerby and subsequently himself.
Yes.
In
Yeah,
an attempt to
he
stop
stopped it.
this hooded figure from escaping the bar.
Yes.
And that was the fire that claimed his life.
Yes.
Yes.
Sadly.
He looks at you. He looks at the report. He looks at you again. He starts massaging his temples. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. This is the dumbest story I've ever heard in 20 years in this field, but it is so idiotic and yet so detailed in the way you describe it to me that I cannot imagine as anything like this not being anything but the truth.
Okay, you're going off script.
I'm getting there. He sighs. So what I'm saying is that's quite the tale there. By the way, are you angry? Again?
No.
No.
No, thank you.
Okay, he takes some bread and water and I guess eats and drinks all by himself.
I mean, if he doesn't eat, he's going to get skinny, and that's no good.
He makes a show of it. Okay, so this is Jesus fucking Christ on a bicycle driving down the Hudson River. This in all my years. Oh, Jesus Christ! Look, we have multiple witness accounts claiming they saw a Molotov cocktail be thrown out of the Cat's Meow, striking Miss Walters, the second victim. In addition, in those statements, more than one of them said they saw you pour something flammable on top of the victims while they were burning to death. In fact, one even claimed you did it more than once. More
Yes,
than once!
Yes, we already told you 3 times. We tried
Yes!
to.
You told
Find
you
some
told
water.
you told me. You didn't tell me you did it 3 times. Who does that?
What?
Each of
Was
us
it?
basically told you that we each tried looking for water.
Yes, but you did not specify. Listen, I'm reading the script here.
Was it
Basically.
really 3 times?
Yes, it was.
Oh,
Each of
oh.
us
And we-
did it
Okay,
once.
but out of character, you said something about that, but you left it a bit vague, and you didn't specify you did it 3 times. So that's where we are right now.
I could have sworn we did, personally.
So I wanna know, what were you trying to hide? Why did you have to burn this place to the ground and kill 2 innocent people? What could possibly be worth that?
Nothing. We didn't.
Nothing, really.
We were trying. The reason why we poured so much liquid on poor Ivan was because we thought that it was water. We were trying to put out the fire.
Also, Jonathan called the police. Do you think he'd be that stupid to call the police on us when burning down the place? I don't think that makes sense.
Do you really want him to answer knowing he's a racist against the Indians?
Oh, well, Jonathan looks like he's expecting him to.
Yeah, well, I think an expression says 1,000 words. Speaking of which, he stares at you with a stone cold Steve Austin expression, not just a stone cold expression. Then
When you say you, do you mean singular or plural?
all of you.
Plural to
All
all
of
of
you.
you.
Okay.
Just one at a time. Double triple Then he lightens up. Well, we still have our fellas out there collecting evidence as we speak. One way or another, the truth will make itself known. I bet it's been a long night. You probably haven't had dinner. Are you hungry?
No.
Not really.
I lost my appetite after the scene I saw.
Ross, what the hell kind of a recurring gag is this?
It's not a gag.
Oh
In
no,
fact,
he has.
It was
he has
something
been-
that was very important to what will happen next. So,
Well-
He has a bad case of Cthulhu.
okay.
Uh,
So,
well,
so the commissioner dismisses you and basically has his officers coming escort you back to a holding cell in the station, and there you wait. Days go by, and your meals
Oh.
are the only real way to pass the time. With your meals being the only real way to note the passage of time. Eventually, even these stop. Not another
Oh.
soul would come by at all. The stone
Oh.
walls are too thick to get through, and all you can do is wait and think. Where did I go wrong, you wonder? What could I have done better? Why am I going to die here? All are thoughts that you're left with as you become weaker and weaker until darkness overtakes you. The mystery of the cloud being one you will never know the answer to.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, that was a nice session. Goodbye, everybody.
I knew it! I knew it! That getting captured by the police was a bad idea at this juncture, but I couldn't tell you that!
I
To be
knew,
honest-
well, I thought that, but I knew John. If John didn't leave, then basically it was like, all right, fine, we'll all stay then.
Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is how it ends. Are you kidding me, Ross?
You got bad end one.
Yeah.
Oh, goody.
Thanks,
This is-
guys, by the way. Thanks a lot.
This is a very disappointing ending to this, I must say, especially with the
I'm-
fireworks from last time.
Yeah.
So does anyone know how to pick a lock?
I don't think Ross is gonna let us.
No, this is the end of the campaign, guys.
Huh.
You have
Okay.
got to be kidding me, Ross. We ended this
I'm not kidding,
campaign.
you have gotten bad ending one.
I'm gonna say
40
this.
minutes into this session, we are through with it. That's ridiculous.
I mean, Ross warned us about this, but I was expecting us to get an actual full-time session.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
don't-
thought we were going to have some sort of Cthulhian nightmare thing happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
was
very
thinking
disappointing
that
that we didn't
actually
get
could
to
have
it.
happened if you had responded to certain things differently.
I was
There were multiple bad endings.
I was hoping to make a bluff at some point.
So
Yeah.
so when he asked us if we were hungry, we should have said yes, and then he would have fed to us some old one patty cake.
Ross won't tell
Since
us.
the
I bet.
session is over, I can let you know a bit about what was happening. So,
Ooh, please enlighten us,
Yes,
O
so-
Grandmaster.
okay, so essentially, who was committing all these murders, as Danton probably has guessed from his meta knowledge, were ghouls.
Yes.
Mm.
Ghouls had actually infiltrated the mayor's office and the higher levels of the police.
As they do.
the commissioner was a ghoul that you were talking to.
Ha
Oh. I was
If
going
you
to
had
ask about that.
If you had answered yes to being hungry 3 times, he would have in fact had other ghouls bite you, lock you in the cell until you turned.
Oh.
Bad end 2.
That was like this.
too.
What we got was bad, and that would have been like a worse end.
But
So
more
what we-
interesting altogether.
It would have been it would have been a more interesting ending, but I tried to.
Basically, it was game over the moment you decided to stay until the police arrived.
Pretty much, yes.
I should have convinced
Because
both
again,
of you to
in the
go.
meta plot, the police were infiltrated by these ghouls from the beginning. That's how these mass murders have been going on without with it basically being covered up.
So is
And they
that
were using these mass murders as a way of summoning the Grey Old One.
Of course they were.
Here's the thing, though: those cultists,
weren't part of the.
They were the
summoning.
good guys.
they were the good guys. Yes,
Yeah,
that's why
I
they
was,
let you walk.
Yeah,
I
was,
mean, that makes
figured out that
sense.
much.
So basically, they were getting that book to try to stop them from successfully summoning it, but without basically you guys taking any actions, there was no way that they were going to be able to fend off the ghouls long enough to actually start to basically do a counter ritual to dismiss the cloud.
So by burning down...
That's what session 4 would have been about if you guys had taken the goddamn book like I expected you to. The book was the key plot point, and putting it on a wooden pedestal is the best way I could do to illustrate that.
Yeah, I was thinking about taking it, but then I thought, wait, they're going to be looking for it, and they're going to look at the corpses, and they're going to search
they
us,
would have
and
been. Yes, they would be. Well, they went. Basically, the response was they see the book missing. They went search the corpses for it. They would have thought the ghouls had already taken the book, so they would have gone out, like trying to see, because they knew it couldn't have been that long. They would have gone out trying to canvass the area to look for the book. Like essentially, you would have had some small encounters with the cultists. Eventually trying to get the book back. If you talk things out, you could have eventually aided them in them trying to stop the Great Old One from being summoned.
Can I say?
Without
this
that book,
fucking sucks.
I mean, I even had a second possible end to the meta plot. If you hadn't gotten that by the police, I would have put down a trail of breadcrumbs to go to a private detective. Madhog would have ended up playing this private detective who was investigating the murders.
No. I could have been playing a private dick, and you didn't let me. You suck, all of you.
So were these mass murders the reason why there weren't pretty much any people walking on streets, because there weren't any people left?
Well, no, there were people left, but they were slowly going insane from the influence of the crowd. There weren't that many mass murders yet, but they needed a few more to finish summoning the Great Old One. Now, the reason why they left you in the cell to just starve to death instead of killing you themselves is ghouls tend to like eating dead things. I mean, they'll mix dead things from scratch first, but generally speaking, they like ones that have naturally expired.
They want fresh food, so to speak.
Exactly. So you were just food at that point. And the final thing I wanted to know is I also had endings to each of the NPCs written, because as the town was more and more insane, so would they.
All right, I guess I'll write them down as well then.
Right? What down?
I have to write this down.
Write down.
He's
What
making
the endings of the
preparations.
other NPCs?
He's making preparations for the Infinity War endgame of the Yumeverse.
Oh, gotcha.
Because
Okay,
this
so-
universe just got fucked.
Okay, yep, pretty much. So Kathy Holmes, her fate, because she was actually having an affair with William, the businessman.
Wait,
was to
what?
Yeah, she was having an affair with William.
Oh my god, Davar, you got sloppy seconds.
In a
What's
love
the-
triangle.
See, now, her default phase to kill William's wife, restrain him at home, and cook her for the PCs.
Oh. We are going Hannibal Lecter here.
Yes. However, how I was going to have it go is to attempt to essentially restrain Gaston instead, if based on their relationship in the plot. But because Gaston has gone away, it's going to end up being William again.
So
Henry is killed by Larry.
Huh.
You see, Larry is trying to become a made man, and essentially he got in his head that if he killed a guy that walked from the mob, that he would be able to get in good graces with them. So he literally barges into the Commodore and shoots him in front of everyone. If you had been there, you could have potentially talked him down from doing it. But even if you did, he was going to go settle the score of the mob, and he still would die one way or the other. It was just whether he was taken out by Larry or he took out a good portion of the mob with him. Manny, well, poor sweet Manny. His fate is to commit suicide by burning himself in the Commodore to the ground.
Huh.
Exact reasoning being.
Is anybody watching American Gods, by the way?
It's
No.
just dealing with the essentially the shit that he's been giving throughout most of his life, and he just finally snaps and it's just like, I want to fucking burn it all to the ground.
Okay.
So Larry, we all know that he attempts to kill Henry. Well, his fate could either to be killed by the PCs, you guys, for if you had tried to stop him from shooting Larry, or if he succeeds in killing Larry, which it does in this particular timeline. Well, you see, the mob essentially let Henry walk. He got out through the right channels. So he gets whacked by the mob for taking out Henry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What about the barkeep?
That was the bark. Henry is the
Oh.
barkeep.
Oh,
he means
sorry,
William Brown.
Yeah.
Oh, William Brown, the businessman? His fate is to be at Kathy's mercy for the rest of his days.
Yeah, now that Gaston is not there. What
Correct.
could have happened to him if Gaston had been Kathy's new target?
Well, at that point, he still would have had his wife killed. He might have even been killed too, depending on how some dice rolls played out. But if he wasn't,
By Kathy?
yep.
Or by
By Gaston, I guess.
But Gaston was the one that was going to be left alive and at Kathy's mercy at that point. And that's how all of the NPC stories would come to a close. The stuff with Larry trying to kill Henry, that would happen dramatically in the middle of this session had you not been apprehended. And the rest of them would have played out during the fourth session.
Can I say?
No.
This is clearly not the usual campaign we tend to have. We were warned about it. This was definitely a tabletop RPGing hard mode. It was the darkest dungeon of RPGs, if you will.
well,
I was prepared for stupid deaths or Cthulhian nightmares. I wasn't prepared for hey, you're locked in jail now. You can't do anything about it. You
I
made
mean-
a wrong choice. Fuck you.
I mean, that wasn't
listen,
the ending
kind
I was
of
expecting as
ending-
well.
I was kind of expecting it because I felt that realistically, even if the police wasn't invaded by ghouls, the police are pigs. So they see a combination of foreigners and an Indian, or Native American, I should say, and their first instinct will be, we're going to lock them up forever because they're clearly guilty because they are not white
Here's the thing,
American
I thought
citizens.
we were going to be given a chance at least to get out. It's just that I've worked for an entire week on a eulogy for Ivan,
Oh,
and I don't get to do it anymore, so I'm a little disappointed, alright?
it makes you feel any better. 90% of the stuff that I wrote for this campaign isn't going to happen. So, I mean,
Look, I get that too, Ross. I'm
I'm not necessarily pleased with this outcome too, but on the other hand, it is the most natural way for things to proceed based on the pieces that I had set in the play. I'm sorry.
I shouldn't have listened to any of you. I'm sorry.
Well, it's good then that we saved the game before the bad ending, so let's just load back, save file, there you go. Wait a minute, where is my save? Oh no! File corrupted!
This is not point and click adventure game. We don't have that power.
Well,
There are no save states.
Oh well, I guess it's game over then. This, you know what? The outcome in this campaign pretty much summarizes my experience with Mistover, which I talked about it last week. It was harrowing, and I had to stop playing it because it was just too much. Think of Darkest Dungeon, but hard mode.
and I know it
Honestly-
sucks. Believe me, I've been on the wrong end of a failed campaign too. But it's one of those things that at least going forward, that the stakes are much higher than you might have thought of. Like, too often you can take it for granted as a player that no matter what you do, your decisions really don't mean anything. Like,
I mean,
basically,
that's
like, the plot's going to keep going regardless of your actions.
No, that's the big thing in Cthulhu mythos, that the insignificance, and well, if it's got to the point where the actual old one gets to be summoned, then it's just well, GG guys, da 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 da, da and so forth.
Yeah. To
I
be
mean,
honest, the only thing I'm walking away with is I shouldn't have listened to any of you, and I should have just went with my gut instinct and left the scene.
And one last
Yeah,
thing I will
it's-
say is that Call of Cthulhu is a high difficulty setting with
Oh hell yes!
so
I
Look,
wanted to
I was aware of that. I was
I
expecting,
wanted to represent that. I
I
mean,
was expecting more of a horrific end, not a you just die in the winter.
Yeah,
True,
I think at the end, the bottom line is this. We were all prepared for some fun insanity and gruesome ending, and the expectations were high, especially after my character burned to death in the most glorious and incompetent way imaginable. So we were all giddy about the prospect of more of that. And then the characters get arrested and they rot in
it's just
jail.
I know what you wanted, but I just couldn't justify it by how the villains think. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think it would be a betrayal to the villains that I had written if I had them like, oh, they're just coming and start slaughtering you.
I need to see
horrifically.
what DMs recommend and advise on that, because the typical advice for DMs I heard from on that front is you can't make a villain's plan perfect. There's always one small thing that the player could take advantage of, but at the same time, it's like, Call of Cthulhu is a different beast, so
Yeah, I mean, again,
no.
keep in mind, Call of Cthulhu is a very atypical setting for a pen and paper campaign. You don't have a lot of the essentially the plot armor and protections that most player characters are used to. It's very much a one wrong move will be your last type of setting.
Maybe not.
that's-
Maybe acting as a party shouldn't have been my first,
No,
forefront.
actually, the way this game is structured, the more you think about the party, the less chances of survival you get. If you have run away and left, if we all had run away and left Jonathan alone, we would have survived and he would have not.
Exactly.
I
I think
mean,
not
for a
knowing-
setting, sometimes that can be what's necessary. I mean, again, I'm not faulting how you're role-playing yourself, Jonathan, considering the insanity I put on you. It makes perfect sense.
Now, you see, here's the selling point,
So
and at
you
the
didn't
same
do
time,
anything wrong on that.
the curse of this particular setting and campaign is that this goes against most of what we know or are used to do as a party. In any other setting, in any other game, we would be used to the mentality that cooperation is key. The party is above all. Your decisions have to be made in accordance to what the party needs to do in order to survive. You don't want to leave anyone behind, and you can afford to make mistakes and then follow up on those mistakes and the consequences and all that. In Call of Cthulhu, since it's not meant to be a long-term, high-stakes fantasy campaign, but rather a short-term, you either win or you die campaign,
I mean, it
that
can be a
all
long
goes
term.
out of the
I mean,
window.
they can, but I mean, the longer term of the campaign that you're running, the more essential plot armor you give to your PCs. I mean,
Well,
that's generally how that goes.
And well, the thing with this particular session is that with the modified system we played, this is more punishing than the actual Call of Cthulhu game. And there was also the fact that we were all completely regular, playing as completely regular people. We had no freaking idea about all this supernatural stuff, so we could not rely on any kind of that kind of knowledge, since we were all just scientists and chemists and such.
Yeah,
there was no one here.
Nor would we make the logical jumping of conclusions of, oh, the ghouls have taken over the police station. No one would
Obviously
have
not.
That.
No one would have made that leaping logic. Heck, you wouldn't even made that leaping logic if you knew about the Cthulhu mythos in game.
Yes, but
So
you know
I
what?
mean, you just hadn't gotten far enough in the plot
In
to know that.
fairness, I know about the ghouls and their origins from the Cthulhu mythos and all that. I knew that beforehand without having to research, because I'm just so smart. But I would not have guessed they were applied here.
You know what? Since it's not going to be a thing now, I'm gonna tell you the plot twist of my character. Essentially,
Please
Okay.
do.
that is if none of you want to guess first, but I doubt you want to at this rate.
I mean,
Does it involve cheating on someone, betrayal, murder?
Nope.
multiple
All of the above?
personality disorder.
Big fan of nice spell.
Huh? What?
What do you say?
Multiple personality disorder.
That's what I kind of gained from my insanity.
Are you secretly Jack the Ripper? I
No.
had to ask.
Yeah, but you had this very specific insanity that was going to happen instead of just rolling on a random table.
Yeah,
So,
basically,
are
apparently,
you multiple souls stuffed in one body?
no. I'm a normal person. I was not anything supernatural. Ross
A
would-
Yeah, but-
likely
Do
story.
you have a phobia of blood?
No. Okay, so here it is. Gaston Tremblay was not his real name to begin with.
No, really?
His name was Vincent Toussaint from the French government as a spy on the Americans.
Oh.
Nice.
Basically, I was using the actual paranoia that all the European governments were under at the time to basically bring a French spy into the US to make sure that the US were not up to anything because they were the most powerful economically and resources-wise.
Yeah,
If
not
he
for
was-
long.
Right after the Great War. Yeah.
If he
Yes,
was,
but wait up until 1929.
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
the Great
But
Depression.
yes, exactly. But that's why, they were all worried because they were worried America was going to be the next,
It's
people that
funny
might-
because that's the kind of mentality that America has for literally everyone else in the world. They might be a danger to us. We must spy on them. we
So,
must
if
overthrow
since
governments.
Gaston was actually a French spy, what was he doing in Canada first? Or was it
That
just
was
a pit
that was actually his story, just to basically cover up the fact he was French.
Ah,
So
Okay. And then Bill Batts comes out and says, "Aha! I knew you were French."
so essentially, I decided to use Canada, the French-Canadian area, as a kind of make-up story that to cover up the fact I'm French, because there was no way I could
Because-
basically.
Or you could have done what good spies know and learn how to hide your accent.
Okay, so one last thing I want to say is the one last thing I did get the reveal, and I'm so sad I didn't at the time, was what Ursula's true insanity was.
What
oh,
would that be?
What?
yeah, you were hinting something like that during the previous session.
Mm-hmm. So basically, your insanity was to lose all sense of social fear and phobia for 1d4 days.
Yeah.
Then relapse super hard.
Oh.
So
Oh.
you were social butterfly, and then you'd become a complete
Completely
shut-in.
shut in. Yeah, I get it. So I wouldn't talk to anybody afterwards. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Just that was hidden from me.
Here's
I
what
didn't-
So
really
it,
gets me.
it was set to the maximum of 4 days. So you rolled. That was one dice roll that went well for you last session.
All right.
I'll be honest, what really gets me is that we don't get to see more insanity role playing. That was the biggest selling point to me when it comes to Call of Cthulhu.
I mean, in the future, we can do another Call of Cthulhu style.
In the future,
campaign.
we will be more ready and we will not trust the police. I'm sure we will never trust the police again, and we shouldn't.
No,
Really.
to be honest, this game has left me feeling like I shouldn't trust any of you anymore. Actually,
That's good. Let's play a paranoia campaign. Ooh. Actually, let's play
boy.
Danganronpa campaign. Yes, we should do a Danganronpa campaign
That
and
is
not trust
just
anybody.
anime paranoia.
Let's play a paranoia agent campaign. How would that even
Oh,
work?
God.
It's basically Call of Cthulhu, except in Japan, and with something that may or may not be real. So it's insanity all around. That should be interesting for a Call of Cthulhu setting next time.
For
Yeah,
next
Kai.
October.
We don't have to wait up until
I
next
mean, we
Halloween.
don't have to wait till October. We could eventually do it at another time once we've exhausted other campaigns.
Yes,
I mean, again,
in next few years, and after we are exhausted of the other campaigns, because well, after this we have the wrestling to finish. Demonox is very eager to get on his space campaign on. I'm not sure what your situation is with the reboot of the Monster Girl Generations, and then there is also Dantan's Imperial Intrigue. And in case
I
we
would like
want,
to
we can
try
do every
to,
now and then do a one shot of the Cartoon Capers.
yes, I would like to finish off existing campaigns first.
Well,
Exactly.
the Call of Cthulhu, again, we can go with the gimmick we used for this month.
I mean, basically, if it's just like a mini campaign of 4 sessions type of thing, then yeah, that can be slotted in basically anywhere. I just need to know far enough in advance to compare it to make a new scenario.
Yes, I would love to redo a campaign like this now that we are more learned about the risks and the stakes, and then we can get the worst ending right off the bat. I would like to have a mini campaign like this, structured to be 4 sessions long, and have these little moments in between in which we just discuss the socio-political and economical situation of a given country in that specific historic setting. That's definitely one of my favorite discussions to have in between role-playing.
Actually,
Definitely.
did anyone here have a previous experience with playing the actual Call of Cthulhu, or even the
No.
board game
No.
version of Arkham Horror?
I have
No,
not. I
really,
have only played Arkham Horror myself, so
I've only heard stories from people like Puffin Forest who talked about it.
I'm aware
Yes,
there are several versions of that very concept, such as Countershot or Delta something or the other. What was
Delta
it?
Squad.
I think.
Delta Squad is not. It's more forgiving, but it has the basic, and it's not technically about the great old ones. It is more like a supernatural investigation unit.
That's great. I mean, even if we do Call of Cthulhu, it doesn't necessarily have to be about Cthulhu. It can be about a general setting from Lovecraft's novel. For example, I would love, personally, to do a campaign of this caliber set in Innsmouth.
Guess I was the only one then who had previously played Call of Cthulhu.
How long did it take for your character to die horribly?
It was a one shot during con, and actually I didn't die. Only one person in our group didn't die. The professor who went there, some kind of the low-powered great old one was partially summoned when we managed to actually stop the summoning from completely finishing. He was obsessed with the Cthulhu mythos and lore, so he just went and ran to the great old one, and now they are somewhere. Now he's somewhere riding that worm, sailing across the stars somewhere.
Oh yes, he's riding the big old one across the stars.
Yes.
Cthulhu. Cthulhu.
We were all me and the one playing the professor, we were the new guys on the table. The other ones were continuing that game from the previous campaign, and I was playing a black man, a US Army sergeant who had been captured during leave in Africa by the Nazis and brainwashed to be a white Aryan supremacist.
Oh,
my.
okay. That's heavy.
It was hard to play that character.
You don't say. You don't say.
Yeah, because I was secretly on the side of the Nazis, except that I was able to break the brainwashing during extreme social pressure situations. So occasionally I'd had to just pipe out, I wouldn't trust me, I am not trustworthy, and then just back to being normal brainwashed man.
So, I guess it's most important to ask. So, what are we doing next week then?
Do we continue wrestling campaign?
That would be up to Devar if he has content ready yet.
I will try and get content ready for next week if possible.
I mean, you could do something somewhat like spooky or Halloweenish themed with it if you wanted.
Sadly, the only thing I had planned was either wrestling or the JoJo, well, not JoJo, anime, one shot, but would not be really Halloweeny unless I decide to put in Halloween elements for whatever reason. But
I mean, one of our characters could be a serial killer. Ooh,
no.
spooky.
I mean,
That worked terribly great for that sort of campaign, honestly.
Are you kidding me? The main villain of JoJo Part 4 was a serial killer.
I
makes sense for a villain.
That's not the main hero.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
But you see, but you know, in JoJo, you have constantly sociopaths and would-be killers that become friends all of a sudden. So it's not that, out of the blue.
Oh, I know. I know about Araki's.
Something like that into the wrestling campaign, honestly.
Yeah, it was probably just the best for us to go back to the
You could
wrestling
even
too.
just make you could either just add like a filler episode onto the runtime, in which case you could have like some kind of spooky supernatural like wrestlers from another federation, like
Well,
storm in.
I think we are.
Wars and Helena. They
I was going to
kind of-
say that we are
I'll be
already
hon-
half spooky.
I'll be completely honest with you. If we are going back to the wrestling campaign next week, I'd rather just continue the storylines that are in place, because I'm actually fairly excited about the next few episodes, because big things might be happening, and as big plans have been set in motion, right, Danton?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Things are in motion.
Yeah,
And
I have big plans if I find the information I'm looking for.
I'm pretty sure we all have our plans, so
Yes.
that's what
Except
makes
for,
that
of course,
campaign.
Apple. Apple
well,
is
of course.
incapable of planning.
Apple
Except
will
for
be
Apple.
trick or treating right to Galliano, going like trick or treat.
Oh God, yes, I need to do that now. Thank you.
Does she understand the concept of trick or treating?
She
She understands that
understands.
she gets candy if she asks for it.
Yes, give Apple candy, otherwise Apple punch.
I thought Apple did have a plan. She just basically just goes, "I break things." That's her plan.
Also,
I'm going.
Ross
Yes,
does
I'm
have
going
a
to. I'm going to break the corrupt foundations of society.
Also,
Yeah.
Ross. Also, next session, Ross and Madhog do have matches. Next session.
Oh, I'd completely forgotten about it. Okay, awesome.
Yes, it's the matchup that we set up. the
Oh, yeah,
last
that's right.
session.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So you two have a match essentially. Technically,
Okay.
Balin has a match as well. So that's a thing
Goodness, most of the PCs have matches.
too. Yeah, that kind of happens when you try and put players on a certain bi-weekly basis, and then
Mhm.
one of them keeps switching because they end up being on twice, in a row at one point.
Yeah, that was my fault. I'm sorry.
Actually, no, Madhog was the one who went on.
Yeah, but I'm the one that asked him in, so.
Oh right, yes, that was you, wasn't it? Okay,
Yep.
I get you now.
Alright, so anyway, thank you guys all for coming and joining me for this campaign. I hope, I mean, I know you're disappointed, but I hope it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean,
I'm just gonna blame the players, not you, Ross.
okay. I mean, if I wanted to, I definitely could fudge things, but I thought for a 4-session mini campaign, it was I wanted to play it legit and at a real difficulty level, if that makes sense.
Guys, before we go off, I think it would only be appropriate if we end this entire session
With
and
Ivan's
Ross's
eulogy.
live stream with Danton reading the eulogy that he had prepared for Ivan, the boat guy.
I think that would be appropriate too.
Are you sure? I was just gonna
Yes,
basically
go ahead.
You clearly went into a lot of trouble and effort to write down this surprisingly lengthy poem.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't take long. It was.
No,
it was-
please do take
Please,
all of your
go
time. Milk it. Absolutely. Go Shakespearean-esque. Completely put as much gravitas into it as you can. It's the scene. The spotlight is yours.
Yes.
Well, it depended on what the scene was, really. If we could have just taken his body and buried him at sea, but if we
Well-
couldn't, we just would have just basically just sat in the.
No, it's
Commodore.
it still works.
So you can set this however you would like, since this is now.
Listen, you can actually take his ashes and spread them to the wind on the sea. That's even
Yeah.
more romantic.
I was
I
also
mean-
going to have some salt water with me as well to basically like show solidarity, sort of thing.
By drinking it.
Yes, and she wouldn't have liked it. She would have got sort of thing.
No, his ghost would have come back and told you, do not drink salt water, idiot. Smell it. Jeez, do we have to tell you everything, you dumb kids?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I will read it now. It's called White Pearl of the Black Oceans.
Thank you, Captain Jack Sparrow. I mean, please continue. Continue.
It's actually a reference to a Santa Arctica song, but anyway.
Oh.
He was a salty sailor going through the motions, sailing across the world's black oceans, hiding within a sea of emotions, going with and against the current's flow, beholding the sun's first and the moon's last glow, while carrying within the heavy shadow of woe. Though lost in time and thought, the stars would guide him from harbour to port. Upon the surface, he was a centric sort, but deep down to all, he was a great support. He never knew if there was anyone still calling, but we who knew him briefly still stand in mourning, sharing in his final days, taken without warning. O great mother of the black oceans, hear our plea. Grant him his final wish to be free. Accept this lost soul into your great sea. May he feel the embrace of your waves. Welcome him to your kingdom of watery graves. Let all your streams and rivers weep as he lies in everlasting sleep, sinking lovingly into the great deep. For even though he was neither king nor earl, to us he was, and now is forever, your white pearl. And that's the end.
That was good.
Thank you.
Yes, I actually wish you have taken your time to recite this poem instead of rushing through it. But it was a really good poem, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you
it's
very
very
much.
nice myself.
I think you liked my character more than I liked my character, and I am really flattered. Thank you.
Well,
Honestly, I think Ivan is one of the best characters I've ever come up for these kind of campaigns. It's sad that, you know, he ended the way he did.
Yeah, well, the thing is, basically, she was probably with your character the most, and you shared basically something with her that rung a chord with her because of her backstory.
And now his story will never get to be told because you're rotting in prison as we speak.
Yes, and the ghouls have gotten a 2-in-1 deal for their meal. I hope you're happy, Ross.
Yee.
We all became just lunch.
I mean, I'm trying to. I need to take advantage of the dead now.
Oh.
Well, that's a phrase you just said.
Wow,
Yes.
okay, yeah, we're ending the session on that note. Good night, America, and the rest of the world, I guess.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Goodbye.
Bye.
And we are off stream.
Yes, but we are still recording on my end because I say so.
All right,
Actually,
fair
there
enough.
was one thing I wanted to ask about your character, Madhog.
Oh, please do. I'm all
was-
for interviews.
So I'm
I
going
was-
to end up going then. You guys had fun discussing other little details about your character, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we
Yeah,
will
Ross.
not. We will not make fun of you as soon as you live.
I'm sure you will, but I'm prepared for that.
Take care, Ross.
All right,
Yeah.
bye, guys.
See you
Bye.
later.
Bye.
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 Okay, he's gone. Let's talk shite about him.
No, he's
So,
gone. No, he's gone. Let's all blame you, guys.
So I was trying to ask this during the previous session, but couldn't get the word in edgewise. So why didn't Ivan try to go back to the Russia after the Bolshevik Revolution? Because, well, that pretty much changed everything there.
What makes you think he knew about anything going on at any point in time when I made it clear that he was alone at sea and he didn't really know anything about the world changing? And there is also the fact that at that point there was a deeper fear than just being persecuted by the law. The deeper fear that the world has changed. And what if his family is no longer there? What if they have forgotten about him? What if he's all alone in the world? So instead of finding that out, he prefers to remain all alone in the world and suffer for it. He is consumed by his own fear and issues. And why do the Dubliners from James Joyce's stories not try to get a better life for themselves? because they are too used to the familiarity, because anything different from what they are accustomed to is scary, even though the familiar makes them truly sad and unhappy. And that's what Ivan is going through.
I suspected as much, but wanted to just make sure because, well, even though he spent what we gathered from what you said, he spent most of his existence on the sea after he left, but well, he had to go to port sometime just to get supplies, and he did apparently have an address to send letters.
He's basically being very anonymously working off the coast of the States for some time, but he didn't really get himself up to speed with the worldly news, aside from the news that are impossible to miss out, such as the Great War.
Also,
but for example, he has not seen a film ever since he left his country, so to see how the art form has evolved and to the way he related to the characters in Charles Chaplin's The Kid, that's what really got to him, and the floodgates were opened, so to speak. I tried to convey all that through his sad bubbling and all that, but most of it was open to interpretation.
I would also like to now that we are all dead, I would like to say a few things about my character that never came up with Jonathan. First of all, his real native name was Ahiga Hoke, which translates approximately to one who fights old ones.
Yeah, that is a bit on the nose.
Well, yeah, part of his backstory was that it was pretty much, name given to him to the premonitions that the shamans of the tribe, one of them being his father, got. Though personally, he always thought that it was simply because he tended to butt heads a lot with the older ones in the tribe when he was young, because he himself was a complete atheist. He did not believe in any kind of supernatural forces, God, or spirits, but still saw them in the Navajo culture as important parts of that culture that should be preserved. And that was a big thing that drove him, the attempt to have his native people to be eventually become accepted parts of the society, because in his eyes it's not like they are going to take their lands back or anything. The war happened long ago and they lost, and that it was also what really drove him in this job, because, well, the Coolidge administration has promised to let this time Navajo Indian reservation to give its own autonomy as a nation if this job was successful.
So the government made so many promises to the nations. So many promises. Dot.
Well, it does not matter anymore because the entire world is fucked. So
well, yes, but in the fiction maybe, but in the real world, so many promises.
Remember, the Yume is filled with alternate realities as well, so...
Yes, but this campaign, let's not mince words, this campaign is the closest we've ever gotten to addressing real-world issues, the history of the 20th century and humanity, and all of the atrocities done in the name of, well, capital or race or what have you.
It reminds us of things that we shouldn't turn out to be again.
It reminds us of things that we are still fighting against to this very day, and will continue to fight against for the foreseeable future.
Yes.
That is true.
Because despite the fact that it's now less, it's still far too much in this world.
Certain things, I would argue, are even worse than ever. For example, we are at a point in which the world might actually end for us, not in a way that's not too dissimilar from Cthulhu emerging from the ocean, thanks to capitalism. So yes, that's it was not cultists that will destroy us, it's the rich. That's appropriate, isn't it?
Them or China. Whichever comes first.
Yeah.
Who is getting constantly messaged on Discord? I'm constantly hearing the blip.
I'm not.
Blip. Again?
There's no blip on my end.
No blip on my end either.
Nope.
Weird.
You're probably hearing something else then.
It's you.
Huh.
It was you. You are the Discord.
Yes, Madhog. I was the Discord all along.
No, it's the Vince McMahon. He's like, it was me, Austin. I was Discord all along.
No. You thought it was Vince McMahon, but it was me, Dio.
Yeah, it
Oh
just
my
takes.
God.
Yeah, that
I
just.
actually do like Dio.
I mean, Dio is such a lovingly crafted extra bastard,
Bastard.
and what's not
He's
to
someone
like?
you love to hate. He's someone you love to hate.
There is a lot of queer and bi panic with this character, which sadly fits with the fact that he's a vampire, and that's always typically the allure of the vampire in literature. That's what makes them scary, the fact that they're going to prey on your women and prey on your husbands and your wives because they are depraved creatures and they will attack you, the gay.
They are coming to your house to suck your blood.
It's all
Yeah,
very allegorical. For example, a famous vampire story that even precedes Bram Stoker's Dracula was, I think it's called Carmilla. Yes.
Yeah.
Carmilla.
Yeah.
And that's the original lesbian vampire, and of course, she is an evil temptress because of that. Incidentally, this could also be linked to the long and sad history of women as written by men. Anyway, Dio. Yes, Dio Brando is a lot of fun as a villain, absolutely. And the only other villain that I find in the entirety of JoJo so far that even comes close to being as entertaining as Dio would be a guy that I cannot believe is named Kira.
Yes, Kira, as in killer in Japanese.
Again, it's amazing.
In the English dub, he's voiced by DC Douglas, the same guy who voices Wesker in Resident Evil.
That is possibly the most appropriate voice I could hear from this person, from this character.
There is less sunglasses throwing.
Yeah. Well, then again, DC Douglas always seems to play characters that have a bit of
A bit of a fabulous villainous to them.
I was gonna say a bit more like have some sort of
Class?
risque sex appeal sort of thing.
Well, it makes sense for the character then.
Yes. But I have to admit that I do I actually am a big fan of Araki as a writer for characters, at least.
I would say so up until part 5.
Yeah, because I haven't researched part 6 yet, but I know he had a lot of thoughts about how characters should be, what purpose they should have, and he's very meticulous about that, and I really love that about him as a writer.
I've been doing my best to avoid any kind of spoilers from the part 6 and onwards, just because I want to see them properly when they make the anime adaptations. Though I have unfortunately gotten few things just from internet osmosis.
Yes,
The things
it's
you got
inevitable.
From me.
little bit, and just people occasionally talking and me not being able to tear my poor virgin eyes away from it fast enough.
For me, it was the video games.
Have you actually played any of them?
I played the demo of All-Star Battle. It was a bit
Ah.
clunky for my liking.
I'll say this: Araki can write decent enough and likable characters. He cannot write coherent stories to save his life. At least
No.
not after part 3. Part 3
There
is
is
the
nothing
most...
coherent about JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
Well, no,
It's all
you
just
say that,
wacky.
but you say that, but part 3 is the most coherent and consistent stories ever told, because it's also the most simple and very hard to mess up. It's the premise, the synopsis is essentially the whole story. They have to go kill Dio, and Dio sends a lot of assassins to try and stop them, and then they get to Dio and they kill him, and that's the story of part 3. But the fun is everything that happens in between, in the journey, and it is a lot of fun in that sense. Then you get to part 4, and it is the most incoherent, write it as you go, kind of bloated mess imaginable, honestly. The story actually only starts halfway through it, which is preposterous.
I mean, not really. That's just the point where they introduced the actual main villain.
No, the actual story, because, okay, try to recap the narrative of part 4. So, there is a MacGuffin, right? An arrow that transforms normal people into stand users, because Araki decides to start to try his hands on this fangled new thing called world building, to terrible effect, might I add. So they face a serial killer in the first 2 episodes, and then they face the guy who turned the serial killer into a stand users in the next 2 episodes. And then the guy who has the arrow gets killed by some random other guy who steals the arrow. And for about 10 episodes, they try to hunt down this stand user whose stand is named Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yep.
And
He loves his rock bands in that era.
There are a lot of filler episodes in between in which they fight random stand users that had no connections directly to them. Then they defeat Red Hot Chili Peppers, they retrieve the arrow, and that really seemed like the end of the entire part. But then, randomly, a ghost girl appears. Hey guys, the real story begins now, because there is another serial killer that you have to stop. And I guess they will eventually go around to approximately try to stop him as soon as he actually bothers to appear. And
He just wanted a quiet life and sometimes expand his hand collection.
And that is really the problem, isn't it? This story, part 4, has a great villain, but a terrible implementation of said villain, and also terrible use of its characters. And it wasn't even really JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it was everyone's Bizarre Adventure at any given point. The main villain does not have any connection with the supposed main character. In fact, it has more of a connection with the blatant Araki self-insert character, who does not get to really do anything by the end of it. In fact, for all the running time that this show, part 4 that is, spends trying to building up a sense of community, of unity between all the stand users that they find and befriend, the actual climax only involves the usual suspects and no one else is of any use. So, really, the whole story of part 4 could have been summarized in 12 episodes tops. The rest of it is either pointless filler or subplots that don't really go anywhere, including the bewildering background of the protagonist that doesn't really connect to anything at all. Part 4 was such a complete disaster. It was not entertaining, mind you, but it was still a slog for the most part. And
Well,
it's also the
I strongly disagree with you on that one. I'd say part 4 is my second or third favorite part.
I don't understand. I don't understand why.
I don't understand why you don't understand why.
I don't understand why people like part 4 at all. There are things to like about it, but it only gets going halfway through itself.
Because it is not as high. Because it is not as high stakes as part 3 or previous.
It doesn't need to be high stakes. It doesn't need to be high stakes. It doesn't need to be as good as part 3. It doesn't need to be a journey around the world. It just needs to have a coherent story, which it doesn't. It does not.
That is I admit that is partially true, but it's more about the characters dealing with the whole thing, that now that all these weird stand users keep popping up because the arrow is on the loose.
Again, they have all of these characters that they stop, fight, and befriend. And this entire community of potentially interesting stand users, and the story doesn't do really anything with them. That chef guy, it was only in one episode. He was my favorite character, and he was only in one episode. And it only appears at the end, and it does nothing. Most of the episodes are blatant filler, and they don't really contribute to anything.
He wasn't a fighter. Of course he wasn't going to just appear. His story was done with the one episode when they showed that there can be stand users that are not fighters. That everyone who is going to pop up is actually an enemy or start as an enemy.
So again, that's the problem. Why are you having these episodes, these blatant filler episodes, if they do not have any contribution to the plot, if there is no payoff to any of them? Again, it's filler. If your 39 episodes show is comprised, half of its entire running time is comprised by filler episodes, a good show does not make. It does not make for a good show. It's honestly underwhelming in a lot of points, and it's also the moment in which Araki starts to really stretch the surprisingly solid rules he established for his stands in part 3, and then we have a villain that, as fun as he is, just keeps having more and more and more ridiculous ability, including the ability to literally go Groundhog Day, because he literally blows up time itself, and that's just a bit too much.
That was already established rule that the stands can evolve.
Bites the dust.
What? No.
Killer Queen!
The stands... evolving is one thing, and then there is just going overboard and killing all the rules. And if you kill the rules of the game, then the game is no longer fun or interesting. Speaking of which, part 5 just goes completely overboard in that sense.
It is completely crazy.
Yes, part 5 I like even less than part 4. Part 5, by the end of it, was just insufferable and absolutely pretentious. The entire series went from being a fun schlock with creative ideas and heavy-handed themes to a philosophical diatribe with recycled ideas and even more heavy-handed themes. Which is the one thing a show like this should not ever become. The more Araki becomes ambitious with his premise and his leitmotif about fate, the less enjoyable JoJo's Bizarre Adventure becomes.
Fate has always been part of JoJo's, and it's
yes,
everything.
Yes, but part 4 again goes so completely overboard to the point that it even denies its own existence in a sense. If you're going to say ultimately that fate is ineffable and inevitable no matter what you do, and that literally the entirety the entire set of events that led us to part 5 was set in motion by a rock, that is the point in which you simply kill the enjoyment of watching this show, because what is even the point of getting invested in any of the characters if their fate is already decided, if a guy literally is not allowed to die when he's supposed to die, because that's not the point in which the writer has decided he's supposed to die.
Oh, I agree that revelation near the end with the whole premonition stone, with the rolling stone, that was stupid and very much unnecessary.
The entire climax of part 5 went completely off its meds, and it was unsatisfying on many levels, but to place that one flashback right at the end completely undermines the entirety of the plot, and it undermines the villain, and it undermines the actions taken by the main characters, it undermines the resolution, it undermines everything they've done, because it was all fated to happen anyway. Apparently.
I would have to do my research on how he felt during part 5 and part 6 to be exact, but I think at some point during those two particular parts, somewhere along the line, he basically ended up feeling like he wasn't sure where to take the series. You
don't say. It definitely feels like it when you watch part 5.
It was around part 6 he felt basically he did everything he could creatively speaking.
Yeah, so let's not say anything more.
Well, not say anything more because it'll just spoil things.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, part 8 was where the reboot sort of happened.
No, it's part 7.
Oh, part 7 it was.
Yes, right. Honestly, I would have said that part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a good time to stop for this series, because anything that comes after it, I can tell, will not be as good or as memorable.
Yeah, the way he developed part 3 actually was interesting, because he treated it like a board game.
I can tell.
Oh.
It seems like a D&D campaign, honestly. It's like the 80 around the world in 80 days, the board game. I don't know if you ever played that board game. I used to have it.
No, I've not, but that's what he based it on. Round the world in like 50 days it was.
Yes.
Yeah, they had.
Yeah.
Just 50 days. So.
Yeah, that's where the number came from then. But the funny thing is, when he first pitched this idea to his editors,
try to explain it. I mean, try to explain the premise of any of his freaking stories.
Yeah. So the editors told him, look, you either have to have the main character be Japanese or base the first adventure in Japan, because it'll just alienate the readers, and because it's what was it now? They said basically it's confusing. And,
it is actually the least confusing part in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, if I'm being honest.
Yes, they said there was too many foreigners.
Yes. Well, yes, Japanese editors would say that.
Yeah, because
especially in the 80s. Well, why didn't they complain about it when he wrote part 1 and 2?
I have no idea.
I mean, they were more concerned with Lisa being too badass. They had to want to make her too...
Lisa is one of the biggest missed opportunities. Of part 2.
Araki wanted to take her a bit more further away from femininity, but he was basically told not to
by his editors, which is a shame, because it sounds like he was way ahead of his time for progressive writing for female characters.
He was ahead of his time in a lot of ways, including in his idea of wanting to include different cultures and represent them in his manga. Unfortunately, he was also a man of his time, so his views of said cultures and different races was very much akin to a Japanese tourist, which is what he was. And then we have such more dicey characters in part 3.
this has nothing to do with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure whatsoever, but a little story from Araki himself was when he came to England, he stayed at a very old hotel, and it was like an old castle that was made into a hotel, and he went to his room, he was tired from jet lag and whatnot, and he laid there, and then suddenly he felt cold, and a woman spirit basically looked over him with eyes bleeding and whatnot, and all he just said was, "I can't deal with this, go away." And then he just rolled over, and this ghost was apparently very sad and left.
That does sound like something a D&D
Okay.
player would do when
That's-
they are done with the shit of the world.
I think that summarizes Araki's sense of humor pretty well, because one thing that we do not usually mention in the same breath as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure part is that it can be really funny, as in legitimately funny, not ironically funny, when it wants to be.
Yeah.
Part 3 has a few hollers, in my opinion. For example, pretty much every single episode in which we have super serious, stoic Jotaro dealing with some over-the-top creep is one of my favorites. For example, the shape-shifting, cherry-licking weirdo. That was fun. Or when Jotaro confronts Darby the gambler, and he pretty much Bugs Bunny him into a bluff, and that's amazing. And so on and so forth. And also, I like every episode that focuses on Joseph. I think I like Old Man Joseph more than Young Man Joseph.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite scenes actually is when basically he's haggling with a guy in.
That was great.
And there's like this inner monologue from. You don't know it's the store clerk at first, but it's like they just going step by step, basically how it goes between the customer from abroad and the actual seller. And Joseph thinks he's got a good deal, but then he's basically revealed to be the that he actually still got a good deal. The store clerk.
But the best part is that, as you said, the clerk turns out to be the villain of the episode. So he basically cheated him out of his money before attacking them, which is so rude.
I know, right? He could have taken all of his money after killing them.
Yes, but when I think of JoJo's Part 3, I think of how much fun I was having with each and every one of those stand users, because that's where Araki was fresh, not out of ideas, the opposite of that. He was fresh with new ideas. He had this cool new gimmick for his story, which made no sense in retrospect, and he completely had to retcon that whole spiel and ordeal with the coffin where Dio was supposed to be inside, which was not supposed to be inside. It's a whole headache in its own right. But again, Araki clearly was having a lot of fun with this new idea that he had, this gimmick of the stand users. It didn't matter where they came from. It didn't matter that they existed. Nobody cares about that. I don't care about the stupid arrow. I don't care about the powering up of the abilities. I do not care about what happens when you use the magic arrow to hit an actual stand. I do not care about any of that at all. World building is not one of the strongest suits of Araki as a writer. But
No.
writing a proper full-on bizarre adventure, now that's definitely his strongest suit. And JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was a pure, fun, schlocky action comedy of the finest wine in that sense.
Yeah.
Although I could use with less dogs getting horribly murdered, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Well, the thing I think I enjoy about the stands is, especially in part 3, is that they're sort of like a puzzle. You have to figure them out. And
Yes!
figure it out along with the characters.
Yes, that's the biggest appeal to me. Again, imagine if that was actually a game. A board game, if you will. In a board game, you have rules, right? You have trick cards. You have advantages and weaknesses to exploit when you face your opponent, and you have to figure out what your opponent is up to and what does he or her have up their sleeves. And that's what fighting those stands was like. It wasn't a test of brute strength or Kamehameha waves like in Dragon Ball. It was a test of cunning, intelligence, reflexes, and everything else. It was about outsmarting them as much as it was about beating them in the traditional sense. And I like this. I like the idea that the characters had to be smart in order to outsmart their opponents. I like the idea that there was a rule set that and how much leeway you could have within those established rules. The moment those rules become too stretched thin, that's where the game breaks and it is no longer fun, and the characters do no longer feel smart if they can just play God, like Giorno does in part 5. I hated that, every moment of that. Like, for example, is drinking piss, right? So what does he do? What does he do to not drink piss? Because he knows
is jellyfish.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's not even funny how stupid it is.
Well, that's how his power works. He turns non-living things into living things.
Not even Araki knows how this power works, because he establishes in the first episode that if you hit any of the things he generates, then the damage is bounced back to you, but that's never brought up ever again.
That is true. He doesn't really use that part of his power at all after the very beginning. I never really know full well how his stand works, because it works depending on what the plot wants. Hey, somebody is on his deathbed, let's use his powers to regenerate missing parts. Suck on that, Josuke! Your healing stand is useless now. Yes.
Yes, all of that.
Yes, as I said, he turns non-living things into living things.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what is going to happen after Giorno dies? Because stand powers tend to turn off when the user dies.
No. Some stands can live on forever.
Some, but that's a rarity.
What's stopping Dio's stand to outlive him, really? Considering he became God by the end of it?
The fact that he's dead.
I said Dio, but I meant Giorno. I might as well call him Dio Jr. Really?
Except
is Dio
not even the only one.
No. He is Dio and Jonathan's Jr. Wrap your head around that.
Well, technically that is true.
Yeah, Dio's energies and with Jonathan's blood.
That is so. And the worst part is that they established that at the beginning of part 5, but it never comes to play in literally anything else in the rest of the story, so it might as well not have anything to do with that.
This is just, it is what I've heard from I think it was part 6, that it's going to play a bigger, it's going to play a bigger part with all of the other, a lot of other things that have been slowly being established in the previous parts when it's just becoming more of the families.
Yeah.
Well, it have better at this point.
But I've been doing, as I said, I'm doing my best to avoid any kind of spoilers from part 6 and onwards.
Yeah, to me, this is just basically like the Baldur's Gate equivalent of ball, when basically you had a bunch of ball spawn running around. This is Dio spawn instead.
Dio spawn. You thought it was Dio, but it was I. Dio spawn.
You know, that's actually one thing I like about Dio as a character. Usually in shonen manga or anime, once the villain's dead, you never hear about them ever again. But no, Dio is like this one character who decides, you know what, even after I'm dead, people will still mention me, I'll still have an effect on people because I did all this stuff while I was alive.
I will be saying
I don't think
this.
he really cared about that when he was alive. He was just really egotistical.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying this as a viewer who is because usually you don't see the villain get mentioned ever again. It's like the story ends as soon as the villain's dead.
Well,
the villain...
you take that argument and you give it to the Pillar Man in part 2. As soon as part 2 was over, it's never mentioned or brought up ever again in any context whatsoever. It's as if it never happened in the first place.
Yeah, which is, I think...
I can only think that part 2 was meant to serve as an origin story for the Stone Mask, really.
Yes, it was. It was set. That was the only reason the story was made. Next to Araki wanted to basically come up with a threat that was greater than Dio and the whole vampire thing.
Yeah, that worked out well, honestly. I'll be honest. Part 2, it has its flaws, it has its high points. You know my opinion about it. I think it had great moments, but for the most part it was really tiresome to get through it because the constant monologuing and exposition is completely out of control.
Yeah.
But the problem with part 2 is that even if you like it, in the grand scheme of things, it is completely unimportant.
Yeah. It is sad to say, but it doesn't really play much of a part in the rest of the story.
In fact, you could watch part 1 and then skip directly to part 3, and even though Joseph is technically the main character of part 2, you don't really need to know what he's up to in part 2, because nothing of what he does in that story really matters in any way whatsoever in part 3. And he's also a completely different character in part 3, so...
That may be true, but he does make some mention, like, for example, the airplane, where he previously crashed 2 times, which was a reference to part 2.
So basically, you miss out on you miss out on an inside joke. Basically,
yes.
That's a great excuse to watch part 2.
It's called continuity. What I have heard, the early parts do have more meaning, at least to some extent, in part 6. Because, well, as I said, because more of the families that have now been created due to the all the adventures and such they have been going through during
part
the
6,
first 5 parts.
Part 6, it had better bring all of the JoJo's together, Avengers style, or I will be very mad.
Yeah,
we'll have to see, because I don't know anything about part 6 at all.
I only know about the main character, which is Jotaro's daughter,
Jolene Kuja.
Yes, these names are starting to be such a stretch.
Yeah.
Believe me, I thought
adventures.
The funny thing is that Jolene's half American because Jotaro went and married an American.
Well,
that's kind of funny to me.
Well, Josuke is half American because his dad is Jotaro's grandpa.
Yeah. I'm just saying that it's kind of funny that basically that Holly, who was the daughter of Joseph, went to Japan from America to live there.
Oh, you think that's weird? You think that's weird? How did Giorno's mom, after somehow miraculously surviving Dio, ends up in Japan and then in Italy?
I think this biggest stretch for a JoJo name to get the JoJo title in was Josuke's name, because
yes, I don't get
because
it.
because Josuke essentially, okay, in order to get the JoJo in, Josuke is actually literally is JoJo, because the fact Suke can spell out Joe apparently.
That
Yeah.
is idiotic.
It's a
It's-
Japan thing.
It's a Japan thing.
It's a
so-
Japan thing. Japanese really love to
Word
things
play.
like that. Yes,
I know,
wordplay,
but I'm
just
saying
that
it's-
because
I'm
it
saying
can
it's
very
a
much
stretch.
vary how you say the hiragana or katakana or kanji, because you
Yeah,
can
I know.
use-
but-
I'm aware,
depending on the
but it is
context.
still a stretch, even in the
I know.
context of Japan.
That's what I mean. It is ridiculous the stretch you have to make in order to get the JoJo title in there.
I mean, Giorno Giovanna doesn't even have the J-O in it. It's G-I-O. What the hell?
because
I
it sounds similar, especially
G
when
and J.
Okay, here's something
Well,
I want to rant
plain
about part
English-
5. Here's something I want to absolutely rant about part 5, because this is the most irksome thing. One of the most irksome things. I was able to laugh at it, but then it became so stupid and annoying. So imagine this. An artist, an author from some foreign country decides to make a story happening in your country of origin.
Yes.
So he decides to have characters that are from your local places. In my case, Italy, right? So,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
so if you are this foreign author who wants to make a story set in my country of Italy, you will have to have the characters in it have names that are typical of the region, right? So let's have as many characters as possible named after meals.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Let's have the main character named Day, basically. Which nobody is named Day in Italy. Nobody is named Giorno. Nobody is named Abbacchio. Nobody is named freaking... what else is there?
Bruno.
No, Bruno is actually a normal name.
I know.
Look, the only normal names are Bruno and Guido in
What
this
about
show.
Trish?
Trish is not an Italian name?
I'm
I'm asking, is it a normal name?
No. There might
it
be.
is a real name.
It is a real name, yes, not a real Italian name. Oh, for example, let's have a character named Fugo. Let's
Diavola?
have a character literally named Devil, because that's what Diavolo
Right.
means.
I mean, that's pretty much the name he chose for himself.
What you
Also-
mean? Diavolo.
Also, his counterpart, Doppio, which is Doppler, I believe, in Italian.
Ah.
That must have been a bad plot. That must have been a bad plot twist to Madhog.
There is a character named Mr. Pericolo, which literally translates with Mr. Danger.
How about Narancia? Is that even a name?
That's not. That's almost like the Italian name for orange, which is arancia, but with an N added to it, and it's the no.
What?
It's-
So what is Mr. Guido then?
Guido is a normal name.
I don't know if I was pronouncing it right.
Guido is a normal name. Mista can just be a unusual last name. We have weird last names, so it doesn't matter. But the first names those really get to me. Abbacchio, risotto nero,
Uh-huh.
risotto nero. Are you kidding me? Am I supposed to take this contract killer, this very serious contract killer with a very dangerous stand, and he's named Risotto Nero? I'm sorry? Am I supposed to take all of this seriously? Risotto
About the
Nero?
serious, yes, anything in JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
I know, right?
So with a tongue in cheek.
But clearly part 5 was very self-important and very self-titillating, so of course I was meant to take all of that so seriously.
Yes, like drinking piss while having a jellyfish in your teeth.
Jeez. Okay, this entire series is known for having problems with its own tone. As in, you would have really funny, ridiculous scenes in the same breath as violent, grisly deaths.
That's
of
comedy.
Of animals, specifically. So it really kind of cancels itself. And it's even worse in part 5 because the beginning of it is so completely irreconcilable with the pretentious ending. If it wasn't for literally the last 30 seconds of it, we would have completely forgotten about what were the initial motivations and drive of Giorno to become the gangstar, the leader of the freaking... the leader of Passione, of the Camorra organization, which they erroneously keep referring to as mafia. Naples, the entire region does not have the mafia in it. It has the Camorra, but...
Yeah, I believe the last scene is like a homage to Godfather as well.
Most
Yes,
likely.
if it wasn't for in literally the last 30 seconds of part 5, before it goes off the air, it's like the show suddenly remembers, oh yes, Giorno wanted to become the boss, to change the world, didn't he? I completely forgot.
You seriously forgot that?
I did not forget that, but the show sure seemed to have forgotten that, with everything that was going on, that all grandiose statement about fate and everything, all of that overshadowed completely whatever character journey Giorno was going through, mostly because he didn't really have a journey to speak of. He is the same at the end as he was at the beginning, and his personality is non-existent. Is just the worst, most boring JoJo of them all, in spite of the way he dresses, mind you.
Yeah, he's also 15 years old.
I mean,
Jotaro
was like
is not
17.
Yeah,
Listen.
and he looks like he's in his late 20s, who just
Listen.
does nothing but lift.
Listen, Akari draws everyone to be as buff as they could possibly be. There was even an 11 years old kid from part 4 looked like a small bodybuilder.
Oh yeah,
JoJo is not a show where you can try to really guess people's ages by how they look, because
Yeah.
everyone lifts.
I think
Honestly,
around
I would have thought Narancia to be a 14 years old because he sounded like one and he looked like one for a change, but no, he was 18.
Speaking of which, I believe Araki's style is very much inspired by Greek statues.
You don't say.
It's very obvious, I know, but still, it should be mentioned that basically he has a lot of material of references of statues which he uses for his drawings.
Yeah,
as
he
well
did
as-
it. He did it especially for the Pillarmen as well. He
The
basically based it off
The Pillarmen are such a missed opportunity for the most part.
The Pillarmen are great.
The Pillarmen, well, let me put it this way. The Pillarmen have great on-screen presence, great posing, the best theme song, the best theme piece of music in the entire series, unquestionably so. But when you get down to it, they are not really all that interesting villain. they are not really all that interesting as villains up until the last 2 episodes. And that's only because the last 2 episodes go completely overboard in the best possible way.
And they are not trying to be. They have very specific motivation. Carson just wants to become the perfect being.
Sure, but I am just saying that they are a bit boring. Especially after what Dio was all about in part 1. Dio was a joy to watch in action. So delightfully perfid and evil in everything he does. He enjoys it greatly. And then there are these 3 guys who seem to just... I guess they are focused and serious about what they do, but they aren't really all that fun once you get down to it. Unless... I mean, Wamu was this honorable warrior, and I did not really care for that. And the Cars, we did not really get to see his real personality up until the end. And by that it was a bit too late. And I guess copyright-free AC/DC was... I don't even remember what his deal was, so that should tell you...
Challenge Seeker.
No, that was Wamu.
No, that was ACD. Wamu was the honorable warrior.
They both wanted a challenge. They did not really click with me after the first impressions. And I'm also a bit disappointed that Santana didn't really get to do much, especially since he was the one who received the most build before his reveal. In fact, I was expecting for Santana to do something because they actually foreshadowed that he would do something even though he was defeated, if you recall that scene.
No, it wasn't foreshadowing for him to do something. It was showing what they were doing with him, trying to figure out what was the deal with the Pilamen when they showed his petrified remains.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. He's technically not dead, and he's conserved in that room surrounded by ultraviolet rays, and that never gets brought up again. And since part 2 has no connection with anything else, we have to assume that we still have that Pillar Man surviving in a state of limbo somewhere inside a building of the Speedwagon Foundation.
Or most likely they just finished annihilating him after Cars was neutralized.
But that's what I mean. They never really brought him up ever again. So you would have to assume something was planned for it. But it's one of the many little things that Araki tends to leave unresolved in his stories.
I mean, not really, because it was resolved. He was defeated and neutralized. If they had brought him just back, so to have him escape or something, it would just be another cliche of, we have these idiot scientists who are supposed to be experts of their field just doing this continuous and stupid things that would let the evil bad guy to escape.
I was expecting the other Pillar Men to aid in his escape. I was expecting that. That would have made sense.
No, really, they didn't care for Santana at all. They even say it. He was nothing more than an attack dog.
Okay, but then again, you spend so much time building up the reveal of Santana as if it's a big deal, and then the other 3 come around pretty much instantly, and suddenly Santana is nothing.
Well, yes, that was the point. They built up Santana to show that this is this big, horrible, evil, bad guy, and they showed him that he is very strong, but not unbeatable. He was pretty much the first taste, I'm missing a word here again, the appetizer for the main course. So that, he was tough, but he wasn't that bad. Oh, look, here are his big brothers.
Well, he was basically, as Cars put it, just a guard dog because of his low intelligence, but even, that is, he's still intelligent compared to most humans, but he's compared to Pillarman, he's not as intelligent as them. As evident by the fact that Wamu basically could instantly recognize their language and speak it almost as soon as he woke up, whereas Santana it took him a bit longer.
Yes, but it's just this does not sit well with me in terms of how you tell a story, because they foreshadowed his awakening. They make a big deal out of him. They find him in some remote parts of the world.
It was in Mexico.
They find him hidden somewhere in Mexico, and then you suddenly have the Three Pillar Men. They were in the Colosseum all along. No.
Yes.
No. And speaking of which, you know what really bothers me about this? The Nazis are the good guys in this show?
Sort of, yes.
And freaking Joseph's best friend is a fascist? And make no mistake, he's a fascist because he's friends with a Nazi, and he's so sad when his best friend Nazi dies in the very same episode is introduced. Oh no! And just the idea that Araki was trying to make me like Nazis? No! No!
I mean, not really, because he just showed that they do horrible things, but when on the other side of the table you have these superhuman monsters that see humanity at best as food is just deal with the devil.
I will recite a sentence that Joseph said in relation to Major von Stroheim.
Yes.
He said, and I paraphrase, "Well, we sure don't think alike, we have different opinions, but you've gotta respect his passion."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is all I'm going
waiting
to say.
the punchline.
The punchline is literally this. That's all I'm going to say about that. You do not make that argument for literal fascists and Nazis. That's the centrist way of things. You freaking... That is the most irritating thing. Nazis are Nazis. I don't care if the fucking Call of Cthulhu gets awakened. You do not make the Nazis the good guys. You make them the ones who try to harness the power of evil. So you can punch them all serious long. Because Nazis can all burn in hell.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. But I think what Joseph was trying to get across was that basically, hey, he may be a Nazi, but he at least has a fighting spirit. That's probably what he was trying to say.
And again, that is problematic. That is incredibly
I get
problematic.
It.
That is not really applicable here. It's like
Iraqi, that's a bit tone deaf.
It's like you're comparing a Nazi to a different culture or a different ideology when the ideology is literally genocide. Well, I guess he's a genocidal psychopath who wants to kill all the Jewish, but you've got to respect his fighting spirit for believing in his ideals, which are genocide.
Yeah, as I said before,
I mean,
Iraqi
that was the attitude pretty much every Allied commander had towards Erwin Rommel. That he might be a Nazi, but he was they respected his capabilities.
Yeah,
even though he was a Nazi.
Well, I guess fascists will like other fascists.
Again, it's like Iraqi was totally deaf on that front when it came to part 2. not
I don't
gonna
really
defend
think
that.
so, because considering the times he showed how horrible the Nazis were, like
Yeah.
when they were doing tests on, they were preparing to test on they were testing the stone mass, and we see him just ask for volunteers from the local population they had taken, and
Yes, for a
take
moment
one,
there. For a
and they killed
moment
everyone
there.
else.
Yes, for a moment there, I thought the Nazis were going to be the bad guys, like in Indiana Jones, which is really a major inspiration here. And I was looking forward to see Joseph punching Nazis all season long. I would have enjoyed that. But then there is a complete turnaround, and suddenly the Nazis are trying to save the world from the evil Pillar Man.
Well, yeah, you can't rule the world if it's ruled by someone else.
Rulership of the world is not even brought up again. It's just a matter of we have to stop the Pillar Man because it's the right thing to do.
They are
I think it's more. I think it was more. They're the bigger threat, so we need to get rid of them.
Yeah, I think it was basically more to do with the dominance of the world for a particular species, and they were more concerned with a Pillarman than other humans at that point.
But still, it's a bit too dicey for my liking too.
You
though.
really no. It doesn't matter what you say. You really cannot justify this in any way whatsoever.
I'm
and if
not
you try
trying to justify it,
again, that's good, because if you try to justify it, you might be part of the problem.
I'm not. I agree with you. I would like to have Joseph basically going around punching Nazis and whatnot.
That would have been so much
great.
fun. I mean, the part 2 was so full of promise because it literally began by him taking out a couple of pigs.
I think the problem here is Araki has a thing about wanting to challenge expectations. He took it in the wrong direction there.
I'll say.
And he clearly knows this because after all, Stronheim got killed basically off screen, basically.
Yeah, they mentioned that he dies during the Battle of Stalingrad.
Yes, he died. Yes, his frame and his death is framed as heroic somehow.
Well, I mean,
No, more
yes.
like
It's more like a thunder,
heroic.
isn't it?
No,
His
more
death
like
is
he followed his beliefs and died.
yes, that's the problem. It is framed like he's followed his belief, and that is why you should respect his life, because he died for his beliefs. And again, that ties in with the whole problem that his beliefs are having to do with racial supremacy and genocide, which in spite of that scene that you mentioned earlier in Mexico, all of that is actually very underplayed. Otherwise, the bottom line is that part 2 is less than perfect, and we can all agree that it has flaws.
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
That stands for everything.
Yeah,
Yes, but I'd say that the flaws in part 2 are a bit more on the nose from a casual standpoint. You know, in part 3, 4, 5, you have to dig deeper in order to find this. In order to find this ridiculous issues. But in part 2, you can just take a look at it and wow, the main character is friends with Nazis now. I don't know what to feel about that.
Yeah. I think the whole point of part 2 was basically basically about the evolution of character strengths and about improving yourself, and everyone is challenging themselves to get better, including the villains.
I thought the point of part 2 was Joseph Joestar galaxy brain out scheming literally everyone in the most baffling way possible, to the point that it became really annoying, if I'm being honest.
Not to me. I always enjoyed when they started playing the mind games against each other.
I enjoy it to a certain degree. I don't enjoy it when you go the route of, say, BBC's Sherlock. in which the audience has not a chance to figure out the mystery along with the main character, because the main character is too impossibly good and smart for you to ever being able to relate or like him.
Yeah, the Jeremy Brett version is probably better in that regard, in my opinion.
I haven't actually. My closest familiarity with Sherlock Holmes is the Studio Ghibli's Sherlock Dog. I loved watching that as a kid when it showed on television.
That might be good to rediscover. But anyway,
it was from what I remember. So that was a long time ago.
Well, anyway, this has been a fun discussion that we have protracted for much longer than I anticipated. And we said a lot of things and we said nothing at the same time. It was a very incoherent, messy, amalgamated discussion about several points during JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which, to be fair, pretty much matches. Yes, it matches the coherency of the series itself. I was
going to say that it's basically a metaphor for life. People, we are deep here.
Yeah, I was going to say basically that I probably like Part 3's mind games a lot better than Part 2.
Yes, because the mind games in Part 3 actually have a foundation and a logic, in spite of how insane they get. It never gets to the point that it's ridiculous, almost a parody of itself, like in Part 2. In fact, when I think about the constant out-scheming of Part 2, I think of the Doctor Who parody starring Mr. Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
In which, I knew you were going to do that, so I traveled back in time and I prevent that from happening. But I knew you were going to prevent me to prevent you to do that, so I prevented you from doing that. And that's basically what Joseph does for the entirety of Part 2, and it's a headache, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I disagree. But I do not get that reference. I haven't watched Doctor Who well at all, except few episodes of the new Who.
It's not really Doctor Who, it's a parody of Doctor Who.
I know.
Yeah.
But I haven't watched anything regarding Doctor Who aside from few episodes of the new Who.
But yes, basically it's they make fun of some of the structure and recurring resolutions in the show by having the main character and the villain constantly out scheming each other through time travel shenanigans.
As you do.
As you do. And minus the time travel, that's what happens in Part 2, essentially. Well, that was fun, wasn't it?
Maybe.
It was a bit of a bummer and a downer when we started talking about the unfortunate portrayal of Nazis as sympathetic.
Yeah, I don't want to touch that.
I wasn't sympathetic at all. I enjoyed their deaths very much.
Well, I'm not against a character who happens to be part of the Nazis to be sympathetic, but in order to actually have that character become sympathetic, the only way to do so would have to for him to deny his Nazi roots. And maybe be drowning in guilt, but that's not really...
Or maybe that he's just hiding from the Nazis' fascisms by being a coward, essentially, by just hiding his true beliefs.
That's the only way to survive. Either that, or you left the country before, just as soon as the National Socialist Party was taken over, or the fascists... in Italy in 1922.
Well, the thing is about the rise of the Nazis rising to power is that at the beginning, because they were smart about pointing, when it came to pointing fingers, they gave the people that even if they weren't Nazis, they approved of them because they gave the target to all the anger and frustration due to how much Germany got fucked over first by the Treaty of Versailles and then by the Great Depression, and
Yes.
they painted themselves as the good guys who are picking up the shattered remains of Germany and building it back up. Large construction projects, the rebuilding, better
that's literally,
level of quality of life.
That is literally what fascists do in order to be elected into power. Totalitarian regime, that's the end goal of fascists. But in order to get there, they have to have the support of the people. And it's easy to do that, to feed upon the insecurities and fears and hatred that are instilled into the people due to various circumstances, and drown them in very vague anti-intellectual rhetoric.
And when
that's what Mussolini did for Italy, and that's also what Hitler did for Germany. The very same rhetoric, the very same argument, and the very same historical baggage to fish them from, if you will.
Yeah. Yes, and well, as long as they made sure that they kept the things good for the main populace while stomping down on the minorities to give the sense that this is a good thing. And after they got the hold of all the media, well, they got the propaganda machine running. When Germany invaded Poland at the start of the World War II, they pretty much got nothing but cheers from the home front, because they had been fed for years from radio and newspaper and such how horrible monsters the Polish were, how they were oppressing and pretty much killing on the streets the German minorities. And why would the media lie to us?
Yeah.
Well, that's how all the fascists get into power, don't they? To this very day.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably call it a night.
Yes.
It is, late or early, depending on your point of view.
It is not as early or as late as it usually is, mostly because our campaign ended prematurely, you could say. So most of this recording will be us just blabbing about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Happy Halloween, everybody!
Yes, happy Halloween indeed.
We don't celebrate Halloween.
Well, I wish I could say we don't either, but that changed about 20 years ago.
It is here. Halloween is more of if you
Day of the
want
Dead is it?
to, you can do it, but there is no things like trick or treating or anything.
You cannot resist the relentless machine of capitalism and American imperialism in this case. Yes.
It's a minor thing here. If you want to do it, put up pumpkins or dress up in costumes and have a personal party, then sure. But we don't. There is nothing big like you don't see your houses decorated or trick or treating. That's what we have Easter for.
Do you do Day of the Dead over there?
We do have Day of the Dead on the 1st of November.
We do have the Day of the Dead, but I'm not sure what you are implying that is done during that day.
Because in Poland, instead of Halloween, they have instead on that very specific day, Day of the Dead, which is basically you go to the cemetery and light candles in the night for all the graves of your families, and there's this really lovely view of the cemetery that's full of lit candles, essentially, that you can see from afar.
That is done pretty much. That you take candles to the graves of your dead relatives and such, and that's it's not like a rule or anything, but that's the custom.
Yeah, in Poland, it's pretty much is a very important holiday because most of Poland is full of Catholics. So that's to be expected because the church has a great hold on Poland. I can only assume that they have a good hold on it, considering how many faithful live there and how many shrines are on the road. I see when I pass by. So that's interesting, I find.
Yes. Well, in Finland it is not called the Day of the Dead, but the literal translation would be Day of the Holy, though it's usually translated as All Saints' Day.
Ah.
In Italy, we have the Day of the Tentacle, in which giant tentacles emerge from the ground and take over the planet for one day, and then they wipe our memories, and we forget it ever happened. What I was I talking about?
Tentacle porn.
You were talking about Call of Cthulhu and how it sucked.
No, we do have something like that on the 1st of November, but it's nothing too fancy or flaunted.
Yeah,
It's just-
same here.
It's just, hey, remember that you have people in your life that died. Yay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Think about
Yeah.
them.
The Finnish version sort of from trick or treating happens to us during Easter, based on the old beliefs of warding off evil witches called trulli. That
Nice.
pretty much children dressed up as witches and other, mostly just witches, and go from house to house with these branches of. Excuse me for a moment. I need to check out what this tree is in English.
In the meantime, in Italy, we are big on the hag. Do you know what the hag is?
What is it exactly? Maybe I've heard of it.
Hag is more or less a literal translation of the name. We call her La Befana. It's basically, originally it was our Christmas celebration, and it would happen on the 6th of January.
Right.
And it coincides with the Christmas holidays ending, actually. And she's very much like Santa Claus or Father Christmas. And in that she brings gifts to the good children. She was our holiday tradition before, American imperialism pretty much forced the Christmas down our throat the way they liked it. So, yes, the hag became, unfortunately not as popular because it is associated with the end of the holidays, and then you go back to school the next day. So that sucks. So of course you don't like to think about La Befana.
So yes, it's they go to in Finland during Easter. They go from house to house with the willow branches that are covered in catkins that are also decorated usually with the different colored feathers, and pretty much give one of those branches in exchange for candy and say a little riddle or poem to ward off ill omens and other bad things, and pretty much and give the branch as a payment, to ward off the bad things, and in exchange get payment, aka candy and small amounts of money.
Hey, so, I watched Hellraiser recently for the first time.
Yeah, the first one. That's
Yes,
it's
I
bit,
am shocked at how dull it is, in spite of how creative its practical effects are.
Yes, that's pretty much the high point for me as well. Basically, the practical effects were like the highlight and main event, so to speak.
Yes, the practical effects are really good, but the direction is extremely flawed. The editing is somewhat incoherent at times, especially during so-called action scenes. The acting is one goofy, oh my god, delivery from Becoming Troll 2, but it's not quite there, so it's not even funny. It's just boring. Doug Bradley as Pinhead is a highlight, but he is barely 5 minutes into this film. All of his BDSM buddies are barely in this film. And they are supposed to be the selling point of this entire franchise, so imagine my disappointment.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Hellraiser 1 was the directorial debut of Clive Barker, which is a notorious horror novelist and writer who decided to make his own film based off his own short story because he didn't trust anyone else with his own vision. But his inexperience as a director is showing because he cannot direct his actors. He can barely direct any scene. Some better than others, some worse than others. Is clearly has a vision. He clearly has a vision for his special effects and the creature design and all that. But nothing really solid or consistent beyond that. So I'm hoping that when I watch the sequels, more efficient and experienced directors will be able to do something more fun with this premise. And I definitely want to see more of Pinhead yelling, "We will tear your soul asunder!
We have such sights to show you."
Ironically, that wooden delivery actually fits with the character, because it's not supposed to be human. Problem is, all the other human characters had such
even more wooden,
baffling delivery, especially Sean Chapman as the de facto villain. I just... the inflection was all wrong.
Well,
well.
Well, hopefully it'll be improved for you then.
Hopefully, I'm definitely going to see more of this. At least the first 3 I'm going to watch.
Oh boy, the third one. Oh gosh.
Well, now that you said it, I have to watch it.
I can't say anything other than...
Well, listen, the title of the third one is Hell on Earth. So, expectations are moderated accordingly.
I mean, it's not as bad as some of the other ones that got released straight to DVD, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, the first 2 movies that you learn about it, and so it's like, turn the car around, do something else.
Okay, well, I guess I'll see about that.
Yeah, so I'll leave you with that at least.
Yes, so hey, a nice discussion about topical holidays and horror movies right at the end of it, to make it feel more Halloweeny. So again, happy Halloween, everybody. I'm sorry for how short the ending of this campaign was, and I'm also sorry how long everything else after it was. But at least I have something lengthy to upload as an excuse to a D&D campaign, or COC campaign in this case, on my channel with bonus material. So yes, I guess I will see you or listen to you or be listened to next time we do something akin to all of this.
I mean, we tried to do horror, but it just ended up being a comedy of errors.
It ended up being a freaking silent slapstick comedy from the 1920s, which is appropriate. I felt like Buster Keaton when a stunt goes wrong.
Yeah.
So, Monday for us.
Yeah, so it's went out with a whimper.
Sorry.
I mean, it's not your fault. Why are you saying sorry?
Fault.
It's just how things went down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes these things happen.
Again,
I'm glad I was dead, so I don't have to see this happening.
Yeah. So again, I'm sorry that I was a bit irritable. I had an expectation.
Don't worry about that, Danton. I will cut out that whole exchange between us from this final product so that people will have no idea what you're talking about. unless they watched
watch
Ross's live
Ross's.
stream.
Yeah.
Which, that was a bit of a heated moment.
So what you are saying, Madhog, is that you are fixing it in post?
Good night, everybody, before I kill
night.
somebody. Bye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.